And we are back. I don't think for anyone listening there'll be a massive delay in the scheduling of Clone Wars conversations, but I am now married. Huzzah! So I've been away for a month of podcasting, and this is the, I think, first podcast I'm recorded since being back, aside from things with Megan. So I'm raring to go. This is Clone Wars conversations, where we go through all the episodes of Star Wars The Clone Wars, the 2008 series that follows on from the movie, and we also did Rebels Reviewed last year as well. And so we are now on to season 5 part 2. So we've kind of split them up so we can talk about the more interesting ones and have more time to speak about them. So we're doing episodes 6 to 13. They are the 2 arcs, the Gathering Younglings arc and also the Sunny Day in the Void Droids arc. So we're doing both of those. So I've seen all of Clone Wars a couple times before. Dave is with me. Oh, smacking the mic. Dave is with me and he has seen it all once before, and then Maff is a newbie, so we will not be spoiling anything that comes ahead, even though I'm desperate to talk about what happens in the rest of season 5, but we'll not be saying it in any of this episode because we're saving that for the future ones. But I'm here. Maff, Dave, thank you again for joining me. It's always fun. We're now at what I think is the lowest point before the big skyrocket for a while. I'd say there is a future Jar Jar episode coming up. Just to warn you guys, there is
fucking brilliant.
Not in season 5, but there will be another Jar Jar episode or small arc coming up, which is not the best. But we're not there yet. We're in these 2 parts. So let's go to you first, Dave. Dave, do you remember anything? We'll start with the Gathering arc, and we'll talk about that more in detail. But just generally, for these 2 arcs, did you remember anything about them before we watched them this time?
Honestly, well, first of all, welcome back, Mike. It's brilliant. It was great to see you when you were away, and all the pictures were fantastic. Very, very jealous of a lot of the stuff you and Megan were doing over there. You know what? I don't even think I could spoil what was happening next for Maff if I tried, because I'm honestly watching this batch of episodes and I'm thinking, I ain't got fucking any memory of this at all, And it's funny how your mind plays tricks on you, because I'm thinking, in my mind, season 5, 6, and 7, like every episode just hits it out of the park. And it's funny when you're binging stuff, which is the mode that I was in before. Your brain, I think, just forgets the stuff that's just okay, and you focus on the great stuff. Whereas when we're kind of stopping and starting like we are now, yeah, I'm glad you said that about the low point, because I'm like, fucking hell, I'm really losing the plot. I don't remember these. Well, I kind of half remember them, but for me, these episodes would sit in an earlier season, and we wouldn't lose anything really.
I think that there's 1 or 2 moments in the Youngling arc that I love. I remember enjoying the Youngling arc a lot more, but I think there are a couple of elements in there that I thoroughly enjoy, which I remember making the whole thing better. But I have thoughts on that. But I want to go to Maff first. So, Maff, with these 2, just very briefly on these 2 arcs, how have you felt about them going into it the first time, and then afterwards we'll delve deeper into the first one. But in general, how have you felt about them both?
Well, I'll start with the droids. I was not looking forward to it because I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
Have I changed my mind on that? Who knows? Obviously, going into the gathering with the younglings, again, didn't know what to expect. As it kind of starts, you realise that, they're kind of showing the trials of them becoming Jedis or Padawans. Building the lightsabers, finding themselves. I actually thought this is going to be really good. And then obviously Huyang turns up and it's like, oh yeah. Spoilers, obviously I've already seen him in Ahsoka, so but this I suppose would have been his first on the screen.
Yeah.
And it's David Tennant doing the voice. So I just like it was perfect and that. And again, seeing him in action both lives and also in the cartoons, so similar. Now, I obviously it is an AI character in the live actions, but they seem to just gel together really well. You can't really tell a difference. Whereas sometimes, obviously, when you're watching the cartoons and the live action, a live action character, can only do certain things, whereas this, they're able to kind of do a lot more. So I really like to see him. But yeah, it was interesting to see, with the games you get to kind of do bits and bobs and building your lightsabers, and seeing them doing it in this, and the kids kind of going on this journey. I quite enjoyed that actually.
Okay, and then in general with so we're gonna hold your cards to your chest before we get to the droids one. So we're diving straight in. So the Gathering arc. So we've got the first episode is where they go to Ilum with Ahsoka and Yoda, and there's a group of younglings who want to become Padawans, as Maff has rightly said, and to do that need the lightsabers beforehand, and then to do more training-y stuff before they can then potentially become a Padawan. So Ilum, just a few quick facts. Ilum is what actually becomes Starkiller Base in The Force Awakens. So Ilum is, you see it in Fallen Order, Jedi Fallen Order, the game. You see it even in a Star Wars comic, actually, in the 2020 comics. Luke actually pops by there between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, which is quite a fun little moment. He's not there for very long, but it was obviously a place sacred to the Jedi, and then it becomes this thing that the Empire mines to power the Death Star, because Death Star's the heart is Kyber. So that's quite cool. But then you've got Huyang, as you said, Maff, and Huyang is 25,000 years old. He was born he was made in approximately 25,020 years before the Battle of Yavin, and so he should be in the Dawn of the Jedi movie. It's around that same time period, it seems, and also, or he should be. I'm hoping he will be. That's more so. It's just because it's around that time period. And a fun little fact is in the Mike Chen book Brotherhood, it mentions Huyang, and there's a rumor that a man in a blue box delivered him at the start of which Mike Chen's a big Doctor Who fan, so that's like they do say it's a rumor. It's like a.
I thought you might have meant Amazon.
Oh no, so that's a cool thing. But yeah, with this arc, we've got the first one, which is they go to Ilum. The second one is where it starts off a bit more about lightsaber construction, and then Hondo comes into it, and then it's basically the first episode almost a standalone, and then the next three are kind of like a trilogy of the Hondo being bad again trilogy. And I think the first episode is excellent. I think the second episode is pretty good, mainly because the first half, seeing the lightsaber construction, is really good. But I did find that the episodes 3 and 4, so numerically 8 and 9, were a lot weaker. I didn't like Hondo being a baddie again. It kind of damages the growth of his character, and I just found it was kind of bland. What did you think, Dave, of your going back into this arc?
So I didn't love The Gathering. I think I know why you would do, though, because it sort of expands the lore, doesn't it? It digs a bit deeper into how does a youngling find the crystal. You've got the kind of Harry Potter thing, haven't you, where the wand chooses the wizard. You've got the same sort of thing with and I'm guessing, I'd love to know what the actual origins, but this idea, maybe it comes from even like King Arthur or something like that, where the sword chooses the person who wields it. It seems to be to appear a lot in fiction, doesn't it? But the thing that jumped out to me was when Petro was speaking. I was like, oh, fucking hell, that's Jeff from American Dad. He's literally done nothing to his voice.
Yep.
Nothing at all. And so it's just very, very weird to see this differently animated character, but I just couldn't get Jeff out of American Dad. And his name actually is Jeff Fisher. So I hadn't realized that. But I guess this is one that would just... I get the lore type of stuff. But again, Yoda, I sort of wonder what his presence was even there for, really. And it's like, oh, I'm going to help you, but not really. And, it's all a lesson, yada, yada. But yeah, I just felt like this could be something on Tales of the Jedi or something like that. And I get, part of this is me having my own expectations in check, because you do have some really... and even in these episodes, right, there's one bit where later Grievous brutally kills a clone. It's literally stretched over 30 to 60 seconds or something, and it looks quite excruciating. But this episode is very kiddie again, and again, we've said this all the way through the whole series, that it flip-flops between the very kid-like stuff, and I guess they are younglings, so it has to be a younger type story. But the whole episode of The Gathering, I felt was an after-school special sort of time slot, I would say.
Okay, and then you, Maff, what do you think of the first episode compared to the subsequent, as I've kind of deemed it, trilogy?
Well, like Dave said, unfortunately, I had Michelangelo stuck because he's the voice of Michelangelo in one of the George is watching the Turtles at the moment an awful lot, so I just sat there and think, hang on a minute, I reckon that. So it's amusing. Certain voice actors, you hear them, you can't shake who they've also played. I liked it. I thought, again, Yoda being a bit of a dick, it's like, you can't help each other. Well, why not? You know, I mean, at the end of it, when it's like when Petro he smashes through the ice, and I suppose Yoda did kind of say, once the ice comes down, you know, that's it. He makes it sound like they are going to be trapped in there. But at the point when one of them's like, I need to go back for Petro, and it's like, no, you can't. It's like, well, fuck you, old man. I'm going to go back for a mate. You know, surely we're meant to be, you know, stronger together.
Patience.
And that's it.
And Yoda knew what was happening. I think it's indicated. I don't disagree in premise. Yoda a lot of the time does say annoying bullshit, and the more Yoda content we get, there's more annoying things he does in certain respects. But I would say the vibe I got, because I got that thought at some point when I was watching this, but then I think Yoda could sense essentially what was happening in the cave at all times. I suspect because it was like dead silent and feeling vibrations or some, you know, through the Force, whatever. But it seemed like at all times when people were wrong, he knew there was no overt danger, I think. But Megan
they
said
don't
to me,
know that. The kids don't know
they
that.
They don't. Yeah. And Megan said to me, do people die on these things? And I was like, I assume so. There's been noted Jedi younglings or Padawans who die in their Jedi trials and they never become a Jedi Knight. It's like, okay. Sorry, man.
Yeah. I suppose it's that point where it's like, you know, when you say, who's our teacher today? Oh, look, it's Anakin Skywalker. You know.
It's completely inconsistent. But Yoda is known to really like younglings and like teaching the younger generation of Jedi, especially as he's gotten older. What
happens though to the ones who don't find the crystals? Do they just not? Do they get to do it again, or do they just don't become Jedis? You know, there's got to be kids that don't pass these trials. So
yeah,
what happens to them?
I think usually they get, because there's one or two books that I've read, and there's a couple of Jedi in there that have mess things up, and I'm fairly sure what happens is, depending on where you are, how old you are, like the crystal ceremony, I think if you had a good reason for it, if you like, in theory you would find it, because if you just listen to Call of the Force, the idea is there wouldn't be a failing, but if there is, I think you are allowed just to try again. But I think if you fail once, after that they're a bit like, okay, is this really the right path for you? Because I think it might be in Legends, but I remember reading a book, and there was a Jedi who didn't pass their trials, and they were given the opportunity to redo their trials and try again. And I think it was maybe indicated that's what happened in Acolyte with Osha as well, where it's kind of like, yeah, you failed your trials, but you get another chance. If you really commit, we think you can do it. But a lot of people at that time go, I don't want to do this. And then what often happens is people work in the Jedi Temple. They work as helpers to the Jedi or assistants and things like that. But some people just go, I don't want anything to do with them. I'm just going to go off and live my own life. So it's a hard one, really.
Or you could have here Stephen, he's going for his 43rd try and doing the trials.
Yeah.
You know, he's now no longer a youngling.
He's 36.
Yeah. And he's just in there with the lightsaber with Yoda with the helmet on and things.
This time is the time. You know, these kids don't, or younglings, they don't look that younger, much younger than Anakin did, though, in Phantom Menace, do they?
They're about the same age.
Yeah, but the whole thing with Anakin was, he's too old.
He's too old to start youngling training.
Oh, I guess these have been training for a while, haven't they?
I think these are like 10 to 12-year-olds, because Obi-Wan in Phantom Menace, he was a Padawan of Qui-Gon's. He was 25, and he'd been a Padawan of Qui-Gon since he was about 15 to 17, I think it was. So it's normally not until you are a teenager properly that you actually become, because like Anakin, when he's Obi-Wan's Padawan in Attack of the Clones, he's 19 and he's been Padawan for a few years, but he's, for a lot of it, it's just been doing youngling training, but like a speed run of it, and him being the oldest in the class all the time, and him getting frustrated at the fact that he's way ahead of people because he's like with 6-year-olds and he's like 10 or 11. So there is a lot of that, but it's really he had to start from ground one, which is that. So I think they're about 12-ish. Because I think the Padawan becoming like a Padawan, then it would still be a few years off, because I don't think they're ready to go out in the field.
So in the cave, the crystals, they all find their own crystal, and they seem to be either green or blue. But in that cave, would they also be Miss Windu's purple one in there? Let's say,
Yeah, in theory,
is it basically Ilum decides which crystal you get, and that's the color you get?
So it's they've kind of changed it a bit in the canon as it's gone on. So there's a scene which will happen in Clone Wars that I won't say anything else about, but it brings about a very specific question of how did those lightsabers change color? And I will, when we get there, I'll let you know.
Not like a mood ring then.
No, it's not. It doesn't happen in anyone's hand. It's just something happens to the sabers, and then afterwards they're a different color, and it gets explained in the dialogue. But you're like, really? And so it seems like from the Jedi Survivor games, he can just change the color of his crystal. He just does it. And I think I know that's gamifying it, because I think the official canon is it's blue, but I believe you would have your own sort of color, and you can imbue a Kyber crystal to that color. So I think, in theory, you may, if I got your crystal, for example, and we were close, and yours was a green blade and mine was a blue, I may be able to influence it and change its color, in a sense.
Right.
So but there's other ways to change color. There's a High Republic book I'm reading at the moment. I've recently finished, and they have a code changing emitter on their lightsabers. So they change it. One of them's got yellow, one's got green, blue, and they change it to red, because they pretend to be Darksiders to sneak around and do this certain thing. And so there are ways of changing it like that, which I think could explain maybe Cal's, like Cal Kestis, he maybe has a code switch in there that changes the color. But I think every person generally has their own color. And when you find the Kyber crystal that calls to you, the Kyber crystal doesn't actually have a color. Because you see in the Test of Strength, the second episode, Huyang says you can't just put the Kyber crystal in a lightsaber, you have to awaken it. And when you awaken it, that's when the color comes out. And that's what the Sith do, is they bleed it, and then you can heal it again. And there's a Star Wars comic, which I mentioned slightly earlier, where Luke in canon, I mentioned it off air, Luke in canon, it's when in the comics it shows you how he got his crystal. And when he originally gets it, it's just clear. There's nothing to it. And the person he gets it off, he says, that it's kind of like a test. He's like, I'll give you this, and I'll give you something else, if you can show me you can attune this. Because I'm a collector, I found ones already attuned. This seems like a blank one. And so he does it as a Force vision, and it changes the colour into the iconic green one. So I think that's kind of how it works in general. But that question will come up again later on in the Clone Wars, and I will have the similar answer, but I can go into a bit more detail of it. But sorry, I think Maff, so if we jump onto Hondo then, so I think we're with the first episode, just to clarify to listeners, we've got Gungi the Wookiee, who's my favourite, we've got Gnodi the Rodian, we've got Biff, who's an Ithorian, we've got Zat, who's a Nautolan, which is the same species as Kit Fisto, and then we've got Katuni, who's a Tholothian. And then Petro, who's a human, and I wrote he's also a dick. So with this, that's in my notes right there, human dick. So with the Hondo trilogy, how did you find that going, Maff? Like, did you like Hondo being in it, being sort of more a baddie or not? How did you find the episodes go? Predictable, interesting, all right? Like, how do you feel about him?
I prefer him in Rebels.
Yeah,
I think he's a bit. There's glimpses of what it becomes in Rebels, but he seems a bit one-dimensional in this. He's just being a bit of a dick for the sake of being a bit of a dick.
Yeah.
And I don't know. He seems to have this swang and this kind of aura around him. And everyone seems to, obviously all his crew were kind of following him that, but it's like when he captures Ahsoka and that, even Obi-Wan says, Hondo wouldn't be stupid enough to capture and keep Ahsoka. And yet he does, and it's like, you're a small group of pirates, and fair enough, you've overpowered Ahsoka, who's she's still a Padawan herself, to be fair, at this point, isn't she? So she's not high, but he knows who is her master and that, and they're going to probably come for her. You just don't mess about with that. And I just don't understand why, we're going to sell her. It's probably not a good idea to do that. And that, either, even if you do sell her, Obi-Wan and Anakin's going to definitely come and get you. And that, it's like he's making stupid decisions all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that, and I like him in Rebels, but I think I like that relationship that he has with
Ezra,
and that I think that really works. Whereas in this, I don't know, he's just being a bit of a clown for the sake of being a bit of a clown.
Yeah, I think they've missed a trick with this character in this. What do you think, Dave? Because you weren't the biggest fan of Hondo when we started on Clone Wars, were you?
No, and I think I'm getting closer to understanding why, because I don't know what it is. I just didn't really warm to the character, but I know you really liked his character, and I see other people as well. It's like, oh, Hondo, great character. It'd be great to see him in live action or whatever. But watching this batch, I feel like the reason I don't like him is because he's so massively inconsistent, and the writing is all over the place. And actually, he's just whatever he needs to be. So the writer will need to introduce a bit of conflict. So they'll bring in Hondo off the shelf, and then they'll insert him into this story. But it's not like he's a scoundrel just looking to make money. And one of the things that's starting to really irritate me is he doesn't talk about making Imperial credits or making money or whatever. He talks about everything being for profit, which is a real businessy way for a bunch of pirates. No pirate would speak like that, would they? Profit's what you're left with.
I think he's meant to be like a sophisticated pirate, in air quotes, like a bit smarter than the average pirate.
Well, is he figuring out his balance sheet? So where are his costs coming off? I know he's got a lot of his men to. It's one of those silly little things that now I've noticed it, I'm not going to stop noticing it. It's just,
I get it.
The way he's talking about profit, it's like an out of context word, really. I know what they're trying to get across as a message, but just making money it would be fine. The way kind of the dialogue between him and Ahsoka, the fact that they've got this later on, they've got this gang of circus act-type creatures, and then he's like, "Oh, you better do better than the last ones because I basically murdered. Here's the skull of the last one." It's like, this is massively inconsistent with the character that we thought we got to know a little bit before, where ultimately he is just trying to make his way in the universe. He doesn't give a toss about the Jedi or the Sith. He's just trying to make a few quid on the side through nefarious means or whatever. But with this arc, it was just all over the place, and he was just a cookie cutter villain for me in here.
Yeah, it's frustrating because Hondo, I agree with you, Maff, is Hondo in Rebels is much better. He grows a lot more. But in this, it feels like this arc, both of these, as I think you said earlier on, Dave, it feels like both of these arcs, especially this Gathering one, should have been in season 3. Because Hondo had when Hondo met Maul and Savage Opress, that was the turning point for him. That was when he was like, okay, the Jedi want, arrest me and take all these things away, but they actually do keep their promises. They do protect people. They're the ones I need to look out for, because the separatists, Dooku has screwed me over, so I've kidnapped him. Maul's a renegade, so I've learned Kenobi's the one to trust. Kenobi's my friend. He's part of the Jedi. I won't wrong Kenobi or anyone associated with him. And you could get it with the younglings, where you go, oh, he's just trying to make a profit on the younglings. It was a quick score. Maybe he wasn't trying to hurt anyone. But then there's points where even his pirates are going, they're just kids. And he's like, I don't care, get them. And you're like, get them dead or alive. And it's like, you could easily just say, set the things to stun and take away any real lethal threat. And the whole plot of him being, it was a plan that got out of control. I'm desperate for these credits. I wanted a quick score just to steal a couple of Kyber crystals. I knew you'd be able to go get them. I would steal a couple of lightsabers. I know you'd go get new ones. No one would be harmed. Hondo would make a profit, done. And he could just say it got out of control, and the more they resisted, it just got harsher and harsher, and then he finds himself saying, I'm going to kill some kids. Then Ahsoka calls him out, and that could be the head turn moment. And I'd have been like, there we go, that's, again, showing Hondo's kind of growth in a way without cheapening his character that would still make him work in the future. But as you guys have pointed out, what's frustrating is you just go, yeah, let's just turn him into a villain completely again, willing to kill children, which is pretty much worse than I think anything we've ever seen him do or try to do. And he keeps getting confronted by it, by Ahsoka, and he keeps just being like, the more money, the more death, I don't care. And you're like, what is this?
And the thing is, so you've literally seen that he's killed off this circus actor, probably for not entertaining him enough. Again, that is really quite bad.
Yeah.
But also, if it was just him saying to Ahsoka, like, oh, it doesn't matter to me whether you're dead or alive, kind of thing. But no, it was instructions that he'd given to his men. So once you've given those instructions, and then all bets are off, then the men can sort of do what they want. So it seemed another level of being a baddie. So
and to what Maff said as well is, sorry, one sec, Maff, but I'll say with what you said, funnily enough, Maff, is the Anakin Skywalker thing of he would know Anakin would go after him. So again, he's not smart. He's not acting in a smart way. Sorry, Maff.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. All it takes is just one of his men who's a bit Dexter-like, a bit crazy, to go, right, okay, then I can do what I want and start torturing kids and stuff. It just, if he's meant to be the leader of this rabble of pirates, show that he's got a bit, because sometimes some of them kind of, controlled by fear and that sort. But I don't know. It doesn't seem to have that respect. It just seems to be kind of the figurehead. But they all are kind of doing what they want to do. He throws in lines of just kill them, whatever, and it's like the consequences you're going to get from that is just going to be. I mean, selling Ahsoka. The only person you can sell Ahsoka to really is probably Grievous or
the Hutts.
Dooku. So, but they've screwed you over. So why would you do that? Why would you then risk the relationship that you kind of have with these people? Which also I do want to, that thing that they've got Ahsoka in when she's kind of suspended in midair. Does that stop force powers or does it just kind of suspend her?
I think it doesn't, because I was thinking you could easily force push the button to open, but I think it was meant to show she was quite beaten and bedraggled and kind of waiting for an opportune moment. It's often that kind of thing. Whenever a Jedi is hung up anywhere, you're like, you could just use the Force to push that button. I think the idea, the unspoken idea would be they're waiting for the opportune moment.
Because I don't know what the race, the pirates though, is Hondo the same as the pirates? Is he the same?
They're Weequay is the species.
Right.
And he
does look a little bit different, that's all, doesn't
I think he's more mature. I think he's older. I think the idea is they don't grow very old. I think they die quite young a lot of the time because they're always thugs and pirates.
Have they tried before do mind tricks with him?
I don't remember. I feel like maybe very early on they might have tried and he says they don't work on me, I think. But I'm not 100% on that.
Because at that point when Ahsoka's kind of there, surely, a bit of Jedi mind tricks and she's out of there.
I think she could on... I think that has happened on some of the weaker ones. I think isn't that how Obi-Wan escaped the prison at one point with Dooku? He didn't do it on Hondo, but he did it on some pirate thugs.
Maybe.
I think
Hondo would be too strong-willed. I don't think Jedi mind tricks would work on him, but the people who follow him absolutely would work.
Yeah. It is frustrating because I do like Hondo as a character, but this has definitely taken a hit. But also, I think with this episode, what's frustrating is I want more lightsaber-y Force stuff. And it feels like this should have been 3 episodes. It was The Gathering was 1, Test of Strength was kind of lightsaber and Hondo's kind of a baddie, and then the third one is kind of Hondo fighting against Grievous. It just felt like when we got into Bound for Rescue, and then it's like the whole side plot of like Kenobi and Cody fighting against Grievous but losing and not being able to send out hope. I was like, this is so dull. And I think with Ahsoka being there, it was interesting to a degree, but there's that kind of, you kind of know she's going to be fine. So it takes away a little bit. And that circus stuff, it was dragging for me. I was like, oh god, I want to go back to the cool lightsaber stuff. I don't know if you guys did you guys feel the same about the circus stuff?
I thought, yeah, it was definitely dragged out, wasn't it? And again, it flops back to being quite childish. So, they just happen to see these circus performers, and oh look, hey, we're circus performers as well. And they're using a bit of the force to do all the acrobatics and stuff. And they're like, oh, brilliant! What more tricks have you got? No choreography or anything. They all just do it instantly. But the thing that really bugged me was when they come out and they drag Hondo up, don't they? And he thinks it's hilarious, and no one spots anything at all. It's just like, oh, we know, we've just we've been chasing these kids who literally, come face to face with them, but we can't recognize anyone. But literally, when they jettison Hondo, nearly breaks his back or whatever, and then they're running off, and someone goes, look, it's those Jedi kids. It's like, how did you not recognize them? But now, because they're running away, you suddenly fucking dawned on you.
If you watch Scooby-Doo just appears at that point and just kind of points
really?
out. Even that bit with Hondo when they fire him across into the air and he kind of crashes and you think, oof, this is bad. And he kind of gets up and he's like, yay! And it's like,
yeah, this murderous fucking pirate is like, this is great. This good laugh, isn't it? I'd love to know what the fucking last guy who got killed did.
Yeah, he's also drinking, and you think, I was thinking, did they spike his drink and I didn't notice? Because that seems like somebody who's been drugged or something. And I was like, that would have made sense, but it's too dark for younglings to have done. They didn't mention it, so I was just like, it frustrated me, and the whole circus stuff. It is so weak. And it's so boring and it's so poorly done and it adds nothing to any of the characters, because the weird thing is Petro seems to learn a lesson in the gathering. And then immediately after that, he's just a dick again. And you're like, what is the gathering feels like its own episode that works really quite well. And then Test of Strength is okay, but the other two, I'm like, the characters are also quite, all the younglings are quite annoying.
But he sort of becomes the leader as well. He's a dick, but he sort of becomes the leader as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, but he's just, none of them are, I didn't really like any of the characters very much. They all had like aspects to them that I found quite jarring. And I don't know why, because I was like, Goonies element, but it's like, not really. It's just, they're all kind of snivelling. Do you know what I mean? Like, in fact, one of them has got a blocked up nose sounding the entire time, and it was grating on me. I think it was the young, it might be the Thlothian Katuni. She was just, her voice was just killing me. I was like,
is that the one who couldn't put together a lightsaber? Yeah, because again, it just feels Tales of the Jedi more so, doesn't it? It's like, well, you just have to believe more. It's just, oh, great, thanks.
but that bit where she couldn't put the saber together, and then it's like, it comes to the point where Hondo says, tell you what, show me how to do that and I'll join you. But hang on a minute, you're kind of locked up. We're rescuing you. Surely you should just accept our help and let us work together. Because at this point, Grievous has turned up, which I felt is like they'd run a course of Hondo being the bad guy, but now it's like, oh, we better pull this back a bit. So let's insert another big bad guy, Grievous, randomly, because 2 minutes ago we were just fighting Obi-Wan and destroying his fleet, but he's now turned up on this planet and taking over. So now we've got a common enemy, and it's like lazy writing.
It is. It's the issue with the Rise of Skywalker in it. It's just like, how do we make a baddie become a goodie when he's commit genocide? Get someone worse. It's like, okay. Let's do that then, and then they're redeemed. It's like, okay, the Star Wars, you were literally one of the most original films to do a big twist like that, and we don't need you to keep doing it, because it's getting so much weaker every time, and you're never doing it as good as you were doing it originally. So, and with Hondo, it's just so inconsistent, especially because us here talking, I hadn't put much thought into it. We can literally fix Hondo's character with a few lines of dialogue, and just make it a misunderstanding, make it you went too far, but it's, the episode annoyed me. Sorry, Maff.
I'm going to say something very controversial, so I do really apologise. And I did write this down, but is Hondo a little bit Jimmy Savile? Because there is times when, I don't know, he he seems to kind of want to that bit where he's kind of signed up and the kids are, offering help and that, but it's still like he's wanting to kind of take control and like, yeah, come on, kids, come with me kind of thing. And this is the problem with him. There's no consistency, and it seems like he goes from one extreme of like wanting to kill kids to then want to recruit kids to then want to, all right, yeah, we'll work together. And it's like, I hope that if we do see him again further down the line, they kind of tidy him up a bit, because at the moment he's several characters just crammed into one, and it doesn't work.
I think that his
maybe more Fred West than Jimmy Savile.
Yeah, I don't think he's a diddler. I think he's a murderer. I think that he does clean himself up. I think he might appear again in Clone Wars. I think he does before we see him in Rebels. But then there's not much. He appears in like bits and pieces, but he's not really in anything until Rebels. And then the only thing he is in after Rebels, there's a Galaxy's Edge anthology comic, which he pops in, but it's a flashback. But then actually at Galaxy's Edge in Disney World, where I went, he's on one of the rides, and it's set at the time of the sequel trilogy, and he's operating on Batuu, and he's like smuggling Jedi and being a goodie, and he like borrows the Millennium Falcon from Chewie and like talks to Chewie and has like camaraderie with him. So I think Rebels is the turning point, where because when they find him in Rebels, he has nothing. I really want to see that story. I want there to be like a Tales of like a smuggler or something, and have like one of it showing like an animated Han Solo and Chewie, what they were doing, and then maybe one being Hondo or something, or Lando and Hondo. You know what I mean? Like, I'd like that to explore him a bit more.
That's the thing. If they'd have, because the Jedi are meant to be quite clean, they could have used Hondo as kind of, we need to do a bit nefarious things here. Now, we can't really do that, but we've got a pirate friend who, we can work with, and they could have used him that way throughout Clone Wars.
Yeah,
and it just feels like it's like they've got a load of darts and thrown it at a dartboard and said, "All right, it's landed in this, and this is what it's going to be today." And
that is what the Clone Wars is, though, isn't it? Unfortunately, is that so much of the Clone Wars is because this was the first big Star Wars series. There were the animated Ewoks and Droids cartoons, but they're not the same caliber. So, like, there was the micro series of 2003, which is cool and fun, but again, it hasn't got the same level of depth in characters and social commentary as these Clone Wars do. So, this is quite a testing ground for things, but I would say by season 5, you'd hope that they've kind of figured out what they want to do. But I think it's just they had a certain amount of episodes they had to do, and they just couldn't quite fill it, and they didn't know what to do. And also, they already had a Hondo, the sprite, the 3D sort of avatar of him. They already had that made. So I assume it was like a budget decision. It was like, let's just put Hondo in a place he's been before, Florum, with all the usual people, with these younglings we've already made in this prior arc. Let's just have them do all of this. So, didn't land for me. But I would say the weird thing is when Petro, like, he specifically makes his lightsaber into a bomb. That's pretty nuts. But I didn't know if you guys had anything else to say about that, because there's other things to say in the Droids episode, but I didn't know if there's anything else to say that springs to mind about the Hondo youngling gathering arcs.
All I was going to say is I wish I'd have researched this before, so I had a comprehensive understanding, but I suspect you've touched on it there, where there's no real architect or no hands-on architect for a lot of the fringe sort of characters. So whereas now, and there's a lot of criticism, just go on any platform and you see plenty of criticism for Disney and Star Wars. But the reality is, before, there was no real control over what you did with certain people. And so different writers got their hands on the character and then just did whatever they wanted. So they had an idea for a story and they needed a villain, and he was just on the shelf. So you use him and he molds into whatever the villain has to be in that story. There's not the same level of control as with the main characters, where you need to be really consistent and they're well, fleshed out, three-dimensional characters. So it looks like Christian Taylor was the chap who wrote A Test of Strength. So I think that partially kicks all of this off. Because I don't think Hondo's in the Gathering, is he? It sort of happens later. And he has done other Clone Wars stuff, but like 15 episodes in total across all the seasons. So I just feel like, I'm sorry, Christine, but you probably don't know the characters, is what I would say. So yeah, 15 episodes. So he did Overlords in season 3. 3, 4. So he did one episode in season 4. He did The Gathering, so he did 6, 7, 8, and 9 in this season.
And be careful with episode titles in the next season.
Yeah, so I'm not going to read out, but he did do some stuff in series 6 as well. So
okay,
that's my hypothesis, is that, you know, this particular writer was brought in, and it's no criticism at all of him as a writer. He's probably just brought in to do a gig. You know, there's not the encyclopedic knowledge that the internet now has about Clone Wars and everything. He's just trying to learn what he can learn. And then speaking to who's available, this Hondo character, right, he'll fit in the story. Away you go. But for us...
turn as well. To be a turncoat as well, I think that's probably the thing. Is like, how can you have a character who's good and bad at the same time? Yeah. Having to develop them as a character. Hondo.
Well, the issue as well, I know Hondo from Rebels, which is after this. So I know a different version. Now, maybe what would have worked better when they was writing these is like, right, okay, you're going to write all these things. When you write it, you can use these characters and also the main ones as well, but these are yours. Right, you're going to and you use these and just stick with that writing. It doesn't work that way, I get that, but that might have been a way to be able to flush certain characters so that they could tell them stories. But unfortunately, if it's just a case of, right, you can just use whoever you want to be, but obviously, Anakin Skywalker, you can't kill him off yet. You know, certain things like that, they know they can't touch, but anything else is easy going.
Well, in the High Republic, they get to choose their own character. Not choose their own, but there's certain characters they create, and then it's like, oh, the 3 books by Claudia Gray, these characters are going to make an appearance. They might appear a little bit, but their main plot feats, things that happen to them as characters, are going to happen in her novels. There's characters like that. Sorry, Dave.
No, it's an issue you have with comics, right? So especially with the big, huge characters. Let's say, you know, you take someone like Wolverine. Well, he's in 15 books a month, so no individual writer can really change the character too much. And I guess because we're going through in this quite comprehensive way, and we're stopping and having a chat about it, you know, I imagine at the points of the season, you know, you can see the growth in Anakin. You can see his whole arc. You can see Ahsoka's whole arc. Obi-Wan. I'm guessing the core cast have got all very well fleshed out. This is where they were. This is where they are. This is where they're going. With Hondo, he's one of those side characters. And because we're trying to understand him as a character, we realize that, okay, he's not quite consistent. There's no arc. He's just massively inconsistent and whatever the writer needs him to be for the story.
Grievous is a bit like that, unfortunately, as well.
Yeah.
Where certain episodes, Grievous is fearsome and terrifying and murders everyone, and in other episodes, he's like a weenie little coward who can't beat some Gungans. And you're like, it's just unfortunate. Whereas with Visage Ventress, she has like a proper arc, like a full on, and it continues.
It's like that bit with in the fourth one, where you see Grievous kind of, you know, spider crawl towards him, and you think, ooh, you know, and he's menacing again. Whereas, a couple of episodes ago, he was running scared, and you know, it just doesn't work. And I think, like you said, you know, watching a lot of the Disney stuff with my little one, you know, we've been watching Spider-Man and that, and you can see from the different cartoons how they're being written that Spider-Man is slightly different. And that if you go back to the 90s, the, you know, all the different Spider-Mans are, but they have an arc and you know where they're going to go. But like you say, with these side characters, it's just a case of no one knows really what they're going to do with him. And I suppose this time as well, they didn't know where they were going to go with him neither. So maybe this was going to be the last time he would get used, so it didn't really matter.
Yeah, I can't remember with Hondo if he comes up again, but I won't look up. It'll be a fun surprise for all of us, because it's always a surprise seeing Hondo, but he does survive until the sequel trilogy, past The Last Jedi, so he's alive at least before The Rise of Skywalker. I imagine at some point we're going to get content of The Rise of Skywalker, and it's going to delve even further into a lot of the people who were there at the Battle of Exegol, because the novelization's got lists of, like, the Ghost. You get to see the Ghost in there for, like, one shot. So, you know, someone who's piloting the Ghost from Rebels is there. There's characters from Resistance that are there in the novelization. There's a few bits and pieces. So I wouldn't be surprised if Hondo is one of them. But let's move on to the George Lucas's
and this is the end of this episode. Awesome. Let's go.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Maff, we can't skip over these 4 episodes because they're George Lucas's favourite ones. So, Secret Weapons, Sunny Day in the Void, Missing in Action, and Point of No Return. So, these are the droid ones. So, these have got a blue Clone Wars logo. Isn't that fun? And we've got quite a few little bits and pieces in this one. You've got Colonel Gascoigne, Meba Gascoigne, who is a Zilkin species, and the species never appears in anything in Legends or canon, apart from like one little canon comic in passing. The droids, some of them appear in a couple of things. You've got R2, obviously R2-D2s and everything. You've got Whack 47, which is a DUM, a dumb series pit droid. He's the annoying one who is talking a lot of the time. You've got, and he's in a dark. There's a Dark Droids crossover event in the comics, and in that there's loads of crossover comics go into it. One of them is D Squad. D Squad comics has R2-D2 in it, Chopper, and a few other characters. Whack appears in it very briefly. You then got V9C4, who doesn't appear in anything else, M5BZ, who doesn't appear in anything else for obvious reasons, and then you've got QT-KT, who's like the female, because of the programming of certain droids, there are masculine and feminine versions of the programming of certain droids, and QT is a feminine programmed droid, and R2 is a technically masculine programmed
So wait a
droid.
minute. The female droid is called QT.
Yeah, QT-KT. QT-KT. Yep, you heard that right.
And the one that has a chance of blowing up is V9C4.
Yep. So there are some fun names.
Right on the nose.
Very much so. And QT also appears in the D Squad 3 and 4, and also Dark Droids crossover 4 and 5 of the main run. So those are little things about the droids, but they don't really appear anywhere else. And then you've also got the Scientist, which is a Parwan, which is the mushroom floaty thing, and he is just like Derone, which is a bounty hunter in the Bounty Hunters arc from the previous season. And there's a High Republic Jedi as well, who is also a Parwan. So that's a few bits and pieces around this. So George Lucas's favorite episode, favorite arc. I'm going to say it right off the bat. I think this is probably the worst arc in the Clone Wars. It might be, I think it is altogether. I can't remember how many episodes the Jar Jar one is, and I can't remember how annoying he is in Jar Jar in the arc he comes up in. But I think that almost all the weaker episodes, if we exclude two-parters, because I'd say it's one-off episodes, two-parters, and arcs I'd say are 3 or 4 episodes, or even 5 for the Geonosis case. I think the majority of the Clone Wars, the individual episodes, apart from a few exceptions, are on the weaker side, and its strengths are generally in the arcs. 3 and 4 episodes for the most part. And I think this one is just very weak. It's very misguided. And what a lot of people don't appreciate is these are the kind of things that if George Lucas just had full control over Star Wars, no criticism and all the time, these are the kind of things he'd make a lot more of. And although it'd be fun to have Lucas involved in Star Wars again at some point, I think that things like this really show that some of the issues of the prequels are very clearly because of George Lucas having unlimited power. Insert Palpatine voice here. So that's my opinions on these. Which one of you wants to go first on these droids episodes? I don't want to pick on either of you, and I don't know how soon Maff wants to reveal his hand.
I have a confession that I fell asleep at the end of episode 10, and I was meant to go back and watch it. I think I must have missed the last 5 or 10 minutes of it. And that, so I don't know how they got that key card.
The key card's in the first episode.
Yeah. I think I fell asleep at the last bit of that and then kind of woke myself up as episode 11 was starting.
I see. Okay, yeah. Right. There's like a zero grav scene where they float around in zero gravity and get the key card.
Yeah. I vaguely remember it, but I thought, I don't know. Thought, I'll go back and watch it at some point, and I didn't. I think the issue is you've got Whack and Gascon, and it's basically just them two going backwards and forwards.
Yep.
To the point, and then it's like, who's actually going to lead? Whack wants to be the leader because for some reason he does. Gascon wants to be the leader because he's what was he now? He read maths. He was
like a navigator. He's like a military strategist, but he's a strategist for like the landscape almost.
Yeah, he makes out that he's this big general kind of,
like a terrain strategist,
colonel kind of, and then it turns out he basically has just been reading map. I think he's actually sat nav. I think that's basically what he was.
Satgaz.
And the amusing thing is, whilst they're both arguing at times, R2-D2 just goes up and does what he has to do. And I just think, I do like R2-D2 and that, but it's a point where they had to have some voices in here, so they've added these two who are going to bicker, and that because it wouldn't work just having beeping from R2 every now and again.
Yeah,
and that, but I don't know. It's just a bit of a mess, and that. I mean, that creepy kind of doctor scientist is like to I think is it to V9C4. It's like, we're going to take your brain out kind of thing. And you're like, whoa,
He's very nefarious, wasn't he?
Yeah. It's Dr. Frankenstein here. I'm just going to, remove your brain and put in a nice little apartment there for Gascon. If this is his favourite ones, fair enough, you've done your bit. Now move on and that. There is some stuff in it that I did like. Jumping forward a bit, Gregor, is he from Rebels with Wolf and Rex, who were living in the AT-AT?
Yes, and it's his first appearance. Yep.
Right, that's what I thought. Because his story is quite tragic.
And he doesn't appear in the Clone Wars again. This was like a one and doneer. So,
right. In which case, is there a comic about him? Because this.
I didn't say you won't see him again. I just said he's not in Clone Wars again. Right. We got a lot of episodes of other stuff to watch, Maff. So,
because you see, that's the thing when they talk about this war this battle that he was in, and from sound of it was a massacre, and he starts just seeing.
So that is in a comic that I've not read. It's a Legends comic. It's called Routine Valor.
Because that, once they mentioned that, I thought, this is going to get interesting, and they might go into that, show a little bit of backstory, and no, that's it. And I thought, I want to know that. I want to kind of understand, because, some of the best parts of Clone Wars is the clones, is the battles. You go back to the arc where the clones are shooting each other, and that. They're really great episodes, so I thought, I want to see this and that. But again, obviously seeing Rebels, I know that he survives because I've seen him on the, with Wolf and Rex. Mm-hmm. Gregor, the one who was a bit mental, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, which explains, obviously, from the explosion, he must have survived, but he's probably scrambled his brain even more.
Well, I was just going to say, I want to ask Dave, because with Dave, a bit of your opinions on the droids, but also with back to because the clone thing, because the things that Maff is bringing up is really interesting. But with you, Dave, I want to hear from you a little bit on these 4 of the episodes, and then obviously with the clone element as well.
Yeah, I can't help but feel like George Lucas has got the hots for the droids, or in some way, or not the hots for them, but he's just. If these are his favourite episodes, I just don't get it. Whatever he is seeing, I'm not seeing. And actually, I'm coming to the conclusion that in the Clone Wars, the episodes that I like the most are exploring the clones. and the other kind of side missions, and obviously, Anakin and Obi-Wan and Darth Maul and stuff, they're all big characters, and you've got the Witches of Dathomir and what have you. But actually, it's the clones. So when Gregor turns up and he's obviously completely confused, I was like, oh, I'm back in. Because before that, it was just ridiculous. I mean, you're saying about Whack, who's annoying. I actually didn't mind him in a weird way. It's funny how he is ridiculous. I should not like him as much as I don't like Jar Jar, but he did provide a little bit of light comedy relief. But I just don't know if I cared. And you know what? This little, whatever his name, Paul Gascoigne or whatever, the little fella, I thought, is this a bit of a Krell situation? Where he doesn't care about the droids, he's just, he's actually got this other agenda that he's working to. No, he's just a bit of a dick. He's got little man syndrome or little lizard syndrome. And it's just, again, just silly. And honestly, when they do like the Mirage type jokes,
God.
It's like, oh, look, there's this stuff over here. And because obviously the droids don't see mirages, and I don't think optical illusions work that way. But anyway, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is like something out of a 70s Carry-On movie or something. It was just a weird bit of comedy, and I can imagine George in his own personal little cinema was laughing his cock off, but I just found it just very, very uninteresting.
Well, to add in that, there's the bit because when I was watching with Megan, she was like, there are certain lines that are really weirdly dark. I thought they were quite humorous, which what Whack was saying, even though I found Whack incredibly irritating, and I found Gazgon incredibly irritating, and them just arguing with each other was awful. But there were points where like Gazgon was talking about dying all the time, and Whack at one point, he's just like, yeah, you could just climb up that thing and just jump off and just end it all. And it was like, and put an end to your misery. And it's like, this is meant to be a kid show.
Yeah,
and then he doesn't do it. And then when Gazgon's like losing his mind and going crazy, Whack says to the droids, he should have jumped. And you're like, this is, what? Where's the tone here? I don't understand. Like, if you want to go full dark about that stuff and someone going crazy, you kind of have to. But this is like kind of a comedy, almost like a buddy comedy of group of people who don't like each other, while being kind of a war film, while being like a sci-fi thing. And you're like, what, where is this trying to land? And I just found Gazgon and Whack so irritating. And Gazgon is so unbearable. And he's just a snivelling little coward. And everything he says just pissed me off. And I forgot how much I hated him. And it's why he doesn't show up in any... He's one of the only Clone Wars characters who's in like a major arc who's never mentioned or referenced ever again, apart from like his species being in one comic. That's it.
He's almost like a really little version, if you've ever watched Red Dwarf, of Lister.
Rimmer. Yeah.
Do you mean Lister or Rimmer?
Sorry, Rimmer.
The hologram.
You're right. The hologram, yeah. So especially in the first couple of seasons where he just thinks that he's great and he's actually quite shit. Yeah. Gazpacho soup. Honestly, he's like a little version of him, but he's just... Red Dwarf is a comedy and it is funny as well. But whereas it feels like this little Gascon bloke, he's just put in there for a bit of light comedy relief, but it's not that funny.
The problem is, if you took Whack and Gascon out, the mission would have gone a lot more smoother.
Yes.
Like Indiana Jones, really, isn't it?
Yeah. But for these episodes to work, you need some form of commentary going on there. But I don't know. Could they not maybe put subtitles on for R2-D2 to understand what was going on? But then I don't think I'd have had an issue if I'd have sat there and just listened to R2-D2 beeping them,
But you say
sometimes you actually understand what he's saying in a weird sense, don't you? Because you can see what he's doing to understand what... it's same as him and Chopper. Chopper's brilliant because, although again, he's just beeping him, you can see what he's trying to say. And that I don't think you always need a C-3PO or a Whack or a, Gascon. Just let him be who he is.
But I think I lost what was the actual point in all the episodes. I mean, the biggest takeaway I've got is Gregor, and I'm glad you put my mind at rest because I didn't make the connection to Rebels, so I was like, oh, he's gone. And what they seem to be able to do with the clones is they make me care about a clone very quickly. So when he sort of sacrifices himself, and you've got all the droids, all the battle droids coming in from all angles, and he's just trying to do what he can as a soldier to, let the others escape. I was gutted. I was like, oh my God, what a sacrifice, and so, yeah, I'm glad you just put my mind at rest there.
His armor's incredible as well, and the fact that he's a commando. But
all his numbers, yeah.
It's really interesting. I love Gregor. I think he's really interesting, and we will get more from him, a little bit more. So we'll keep an eye out for him. But I think one of the reasons the clones connect so well is because they never chose to be born. They were bred for battle. They grow twice as fast as a normal human, and so they're alive for like 8 or 9 years, and then they just get put into suits and they just go off into war.
They're also not silly though, are they? Like the battle droids are like, oh, Roger, Roger. I hope this thing doesn't blow up. Brah. And Vac, he's like being a bit silly, isn't he? So again, they choose who are the silly kind of characters, and the droids are always business, aren't they? I think that helps.
Can I just say, though, as much as I love R2, his power level in these episodes is insanity. Yeah. He can fight literally anyone. He takes on battle droids. He takes on one of those like general strategy robot things, like in one of the episodes, like by punching, and by floating with the jetpack, like zooming around and like ramming into him. He can electrocute anyone. He can survive an entire ship exploding in Rhydonium while being next to the detonator, in amidst all of it. And you're like, he's basically indestructible, and he can do basically everything more than any other battle droid.
Do you think he's got force powers? Is that what you're asking?
No, I don't. I don't think droids have force powers. But it's one of those things where I found that it frustrated me because he's too overpowered, and it just never felt like he was in any real danger. It was like, oh no, he's cornered. He's just going to kill everyone.
Yeah, and also, you forget though, he's got that special. Plot armor. He's got plot armor. Which, he can't be killed. That's the thing.
Exactly, and that's the issue. He's never really in any danger. And also, one thing I noticed, and I'm annoyed at myself for noticing this because I'm never going to be able to unnotice it. So in the days of the original trilogy, in the Galactic Civil War, when it's the Empire against the Rebels or whatever, astromechs are on both sides. When have we ever seen in any separatist base around B1 battle droids and B2 battle droids any astromechs ever? I can't remember any apart from that one episode where Grievous kind of hides one in the Republic with the Ahsoka episode. That's the only time. Now in the
you won't really see him in the X-wings, though, really, don't you?
Say again.
So
you only see him in the X-wings.
In the X-wings.
Well, not really, because they're the ones. So on the Republic side, to open any door that has that lock thing, you need an astromech droid, the in and spinny lock thing, and they also.
No spoilers, but I'm sure they have their. It's like in Outlaws. One of the characters.
In Solo, I think one of the characters has one.
So but they will have them. It's just obviously the astromech has it on him.
Yeah,
I think it's just one of those things where it's where they fit. You do see him on the X-wings.
Yeah, but not on the separatist side. The separatists don't have them.
Live breaking news.
As Dave, have you Googled it?
I feel like I need to say live breaking news now. Very sad. James Earl Jones has just died.
I wondered if that was when they announced they were going to use his. He approved the use of his voice for them to use forever for Darth Vader. I assumed that would be.
What a legend, though.
Yeah. I mean, this will be coming out ages after that happened. I think a month or so. So if you haven't already found out when listening to this, that's a shame. It's
spoiler alert. But it's very. I feel a bit sad about that. It's very gutted. I mean, he's 93 apparently.
Yeah,
just literally flashed up on my phone there.
Yeah, our generation knows him as, there's obviously the Vader voice and Mufasa, but
he's also in Conan and the Barbarian.
Yeah, he was the
snake guy.
Yeah,
that's cool. But I will say with the droid thing with the astromech back to R2, when you think about the droids ships in the Separatist War, they're mainly sort of the vulture droids, which are the ones that are kind of this sort of shape, and they kind of do that, and then the things come down. They don't have astromechs connected because they are their own droid. The B-1 battle droids don't generally get into vehicles and fly the spaceships unless it's a giant star cruiser or the tiny little speeder bikes. The normal starships that fly around in space at the start of like Revenge of the Sith, they're all just droids in themselves. The droid is the ship. So where are the astromechs?
But maybe that's why the Separatists don't use that version of astromechs.
So how do they sneak in? That's the big plot hole. I've never seen in the Clone Wars. What I've noticed is they often use the astromechs to sneak into Separatist bases, but Separatists never use astromechs.
Well, they must use because they have them big square ones with the kind of the weird.
Well, they're gonk droids, and they're meant to be like giant walking batteries.
Gonk.
Yeah, good impression. They're basically giant USB sticks and giant batteries, gonk droids. So they're just a walking.
What is the primary function of an astromech droid? So we see them in the
astro navigation.
Astro navigation. But I mean, he seems to be a bit of a Swiss Army knife as well because he can open doors.
Yeah,
so not only just navigating star systems and making sure you don't drive through. I mean, the Millennium Falcon doesn't have an astromech, but seems to navigate through hyperspace. Okay,
this and a Swiss Army knife. Smartphone Swiss Army knife without Google Translate.
A bit of everything. But he's also like the Terminator when he needs to be, isn't he? Because he just takes out all these other things. I still think in the prequels they ruined it by giving him fucking jet propulsion abilities and stuff.
Yeah, it was a bit much.
That's to solve the Dalek issue of steps.
Yeah. Well, actually, bringing it back to old David Tennant. They were always, the thing was always about Daleks and they can't get upstairs, but I'm sure it was the Tennant's Doctor Who.
Nah, it's Eccleston. I watched it the other day.
Was it?
Yeah, it's called the episode Dalek when Eccleston first comes across them, episode 7 or 8.
And they can actually use the jets up the stairs, yeah.
Yeah. But they're just frustrating me with R2 being so ridiculously powerful to a ridiculous degree. And yeah, if there are astromechs, maybe there's the odd one, but when... I don't remember seeing any around Separatist, or at least nowhere near that many. At least in the First Order, when like it's the sequel trilogy, when they sneak like BB-8 in, there are the same droids that the First Order used. They just are painted black. Same with the Empire. You see droids in the Empire. Mouse droids are going around. Other types of droids are about protocol droids. It's the same. But with the droids, with an army of droids, they wouldn't have astromechs. They would just have the ability to do that built into other things.
Mm.
Well, that's funny because there's a bit in these episodes, isn't there, where actually Gascon says, the last people the droids would expect to be betrayed by is other droids.
Yeah.
And the battle droids are pretty derogatory to the astromechs, aren't they?
Yeah.
So they must be around. But I agree, I've never sort of seen them.
And also, if both sides of the war use droids, why would the droids just... think every droid is on their side?
Yeah, you're overthinking things somewhere. Because it's that thing where BD1, no, BT, who's the
thought that kills itself, that sacrifices itself.
No, Dr. Afra's droid,
BT1 and 000.
Yeah, we see them there, so they are on the Separatist side, but it's probably just one of those things of other scenes. They just never think to add them in there to show it, and that it'll just be an afterthought by where they've got droids as well. So, but at the same point, if the astromech's there to kind of guide the ships, why would they just be kind of randomly traveling around the ships, they would be in a certain area.
Well, they go to the bridge. There's no astromechs up there.
I think we're just picking plot holes.
It's the thing. By this late in the game, with a lot of the Maul stuff, once you get over the whole sliced in half things, all the episodes are really quite tight. And the next, I won't say anything about them, but the next 2 arcs we're going into are 2 of the best arcs in Star Wars. They're very well written. From memory, they're quite hard to fault. But with these, something as clear as the whole plot is it's 4 episodes and it's about 22 to 25 minutes apiece. So this is about 100 minutes. So it's about an hour and a half plus of just these droids. Granted that, it does get refreshing when Gregor kind of comes into it the second half. But these first 2 episodes especially are just droids doing stuff. And it's as Dave said kind of early on a lot more succinctly than I've said it, which is just what was the kind of goal? What was this to show? It was just to steal them. Learning anything. Gazgon doesn't learn anything. He hates the droids, and then at the end, he's like, "Oh, I don't hate you as much." Basically, he hasn't really become. He hasn't become less of a coward. He only does stuff when it benefits him, or if he's safe to do it. He's a snivelling little weasel who no one likes, and he has got no special skills whatsoever. All he does is brag about everything he knows. All Whack does is constantly call him out for doing it, but not really helping either. And then R2 just solves every single problem that they have, and also figures out all the plans, defeats everyone in hand-to-hand combat, flies them out of everywhere. You're just like, why didn't you just send R2 by himself? Why do you even make a squad? And, where's the... It just seemed a bit weird where you've got, 5 astromech droids, just the exact same. And they've got these special abilities, which was really just, one of them has a really great laser, and that's about it, really. The other ones don't really get anything.
One's got a special magnet grabber.
But do they ever use that?
Yeah.
Is it once? Right at the start?
Yeah, they use it in, I think, the last episode.
Oh, really?
She steals the gun off someone. I can't remember who it was now. But yeah, she can. You see, it comes out and it grabs the gun, and then the other one uses a laser, but forgets to obviously lock himself down again.
Yeah,
and then ends up on the floor. And then R2D2 just, saves the day.
And it's weird because the actual plot is literally they're planning the final episode is they're planning this bomb to destroy this peaceful negotiation thing. It would decimate everyone. When that ship explodes, right in that last episode, really good. When it happens, it really feels like a panic is happening. When the alarm's sounding and the things all shaking and Anakin and Obi-Wan oh my god, what's happening? And you're watching these pieces of debris smash against the glass. That felt dangerous. So it's weird because it feels like, again, I think this is what happens a lot with some of these issues, these episodes. I feel like this should have really been 3 episodes, if not 2. What they should have happened is they should have had the first bit and skip over the first waffly bits, but just get the droids, go in, get the modular thing, crash land on the void. They go there, and then Gascon goes a bit crazy. Next episode, find Gregor, snap him out of it, go. I think that. Or even if you did it in 3 episodes, just keep the 2 Gregor ones. But the first 2 episodes with the droids, especially Sunny Day in the Void, is just so weak.
I think I've got a theory, right? So on Missing in Action, so episode 12, usually you get on IMDb, the writer is George Lucas plus someone else. So you know that the someone else did everything and George is there because he's the creator and he's the writer on everything. On episode 12, he is the only sole person named as the writer. I reckon he actually wrote, and he had just some other people fill in the dialogue and fill in some of the blanks and whatever. But I reckon a lot of this is George's brainchild. And to be honest, you look at the next batch and you've got different writers on. So I just think it's one of those where it's his baby, he fucking loves it because it popped out of his head. And he had a whole series on the droids when no one really cared about Star Wars, in terms of the extended universe outside the movies. So yeah, I think it's just George's baby. And again, for the brilliance of him, he's not brilliant at everything. And I think this arc is evidence of that.
What you're saying is it was in the contract. He had to do this and that. So,
and everyone's like, yeah, George, fucking brilliant. Yeah, love this.
Yeah, So it was inspired by his first ever movie, TH3-1138, and 1138 are numbers that come up in Star Wars quite a lot. But I think it was kind of like it was inspired by his own. It's like a homage to his own content. But I think it's also a nod to like there's some other films out there about people being like stuck in deserts and etc. and things like that. Which I think
is that film that you talk about? Is it on a VHS? Is it available on VHS?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I mean, to be fair, it came out before Star Wars did, so it would be that era.
If you're listening, Chris.
Yeah.
Well, Chris is definitely not listening, so we can guarantee that Chris is not listening to this, but that would be a nice sneaky one to do.
But the guy who does the next batch is a guy called Chris Collins, and just looking at his stuff, he did about 3 episodes on The Wire. He was the writer for John Wick Chapter 3. He's done some Sons of Anarchy, some Man in High Castle. So I think you're talking about a different caliber of actual writer in the episodes that are coming up after this.
Almost as good as George, then.
Yeah.
It's just the Sunny Day in the Void is the weakest one, unfortunately. It's just the one where they're just walking through the desert for ages. It's just so boring, and the characters aren't interesting enough. And also, they're not like, if there were characters in there that were either lesser known characters to pop up again, or characters like Plo Koon that you want to know more about, but these are all new characters, and all of them are droids by Gascon.
But again, what you've said there is it matches up with what I recognise, because I'm sure there's more than just carry on up the Kyber, but there's loads of things that George would have seen in the 50s and 60s and 70s and stuff about people seeing mirages and, oh, what a funny phenomenon this is. It's hilarious. Let's recreate that. That all makes sense, that it would be an homage to something from a bygone era.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. It's one of those, but it's still... I don't like this arc. It's better and worse than I remember it. I didn't remember Gregor being in it. I remembered loosely they found a clone. I couldn't remember much else about it, but I think that it does have parts in it to like. It's not like the worst thing ever. It's just there was nothing that was making me go, yeah, I really want to watch this next episode until, as you said, Dave, until Gregor was introduced, and that's just because the clones make everything more interesting. And
again, it sort of touches on those real deep themes about, his slave owner essentially is gaslighting him into thinking, well, I can't even afford you. I'm doing you a favor. It's like an abusive relationship, isn't it? I'm losing money on you. So, you should be bloody grateful. I'm putting up the extra money to cover your costs. It goes from this kid's story to touching on some real deep themes.
Yeah, and this thing, because like the actual episode, there's some people online who are like praising it, because I was just trying to look to see if I could find anything else about the inspiration for the episode, and it's a lot of it is
his name George Lucas on Letterboxd.
No, it's Lord Dukas.
Yeah.
But the thing is that a lot of people are saying they like it because it talks about like droids philosophizing about their own existence, and I'm like, I didn't get that. I didn't get there being deep. There might have been a throwaway line here or there, but I didn't get like deep conversations about what it is to really be alive. I just got Gascon being unbearable.
It wasn't philosophy. Sorry, it wasn't philosophy. It was more just he thinks droids are fucking useless. Mm-hmm. And they're not. They just have a different perspective, and they have a right to life as well and see things differently. Mm. I don't know if it's philosophy.
No.
You see, I felt watching Gascon and Whack, it's like driving to the seaside when the kids were younger and just listening to Witter in the back of the car all the way there. And that's what it was just like. And it's just like, and it only actually got better in that episode when we get Greg on. It's like, oh, right, actually something I care about, something, I want to kind of see more. Than there's a bit more of a plot there of, showing that they're going to try and bomb and, destroy. There's a big trade meeting or something like that with all the
Jedi Council are there and the Republic are there, etc. Yeah.
But, again, shoe on that bit in there, but it then give it a bit of purpose. And then, the sacrifice that Gregor makes, and you're like, yeah, right, I like this. Here we go. It's brilliant. And then the last episode's all right. And again, it shows them kind of working together to try and stop the ship. But then first two were just pointless.
Yeah.
They're just. I do feel it's just a case of we have to give him something, and he's been raving about this thing, so let's just stick it in there. And I can't look, but when were these released?
Oh, what year?
What month?
Oh, what month?
Was there by any chance December?
Oh, you think it was near the sort of the tail end of it? Let me just look it up. I will say though, as well with the episodes, I was going to say about that the ghost ship with the holograms of the crew. I thought that was really interesting. That's a cool concept.
Yeah.
Like, and although it seemed to
never to be seen again.
Well, yeah, I don't think it is ever mentioned again. It was December. So Secret Weapons came out November. Sunny Say in the Void came out December 7th. Then Missing in Action came out 4th of January. So Sunny Day in the Void was the mid-series break for this season before Christmas.
But you got to think, normally that time of year, people are busy doing other stuff, getting ready for Christmas and stuff like that. So viewership kind of drops a bit. I think we've seen before that quite often. So if we're going to, right, okay, George wants us to put this in here, where do we put it? Let's stick it in the couple of weeks where people don't really watch. We can get over them, and then when we come back in January, we've got Missing in Action, which has a bit more of an oomph.
And it's 2013, so this is before streaming was really properly in full swing. So it was still at a time where it was kind of like, I think it's still on TV. I think Series 5. This might be the last one it was on TV, or it might have just moved to another station. But yeah, again, it's...
Was this on Netflix at this point?
I think whenever I look it up, I always get confused. But I think it was either Netflix by this point, or it was. I think it was the first 4 seasons was Cartoon Network. Then it was another station. Then it was Netflix. But I'll double check. But what's interesting is these two arcs. They do the inverse of each other. So I feel like the Gathering arc starts strong and ends weak, and then the Droid arc starts weak and ends strong.
Yeah.
Like the first 2 of the Gathering are good, and then the last 2 of these ones are good. So it makes the watching of it quite unpleasant at points, because you watch episode 6 and 7, you're like, this is pretty good. And then you watch 8 and 9, you're like, this isn't very good. Then you watch 10 and 11, you're like, God, this is not great. And then you get 12 and 13, and you're like, oh. And then you get the next ones.
Yeah. You see, again, it's that thing of, why not? We won't go into Acolyte, but instead of it being 8 episodes, condense it and make it better. Instead of being 22 episodes of Clone Wars, drop it down to 18. Condense it, make it.
Well, they have done it. This is 20 episodes, so they are knocking them down a little bit. Okay. But sorry, so it is. We are getting there, but it is the next 2 seasons, season 6 and 7. They're just 12 or 13 episodes. But sorry, Dave, what were you going to say there?
Well, I don't know if this is a link or not, but obviously it's Colonel Gascon, and the whole joke is he keeps getting called a corporal, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And I was thinking, Missing in Action, Christ, how do you have an episode called Missing in Action and not have a reference to Colonel James Braddock, Chuck Norris in Missing in Action? I thought, well, Colonel. So Colonel, that was his rank. Chuck Norris's rank in Missing in Action. I wonder if that is the tenuous link to these episodes.
I think you're grasping at straws here, Dave.
Yeah.
Giving him too much credit.
I mean, we've been talking for about an hour and a half. I don't know how the fuck. Talking about grasping at straws, it's trying to find something good to say.
Yeah, there is a lot about these episodes. Out of interest, we'll start to wrap up. But what, Dave, of these 2 arcs, what was your favourite of the 2? And there's anything else you want to mention about them?
Oh, favourite? I think I have them both on par with each other, I think. Actually, you know what? I would edge, if you put a gun to my head, like Missing in Action 2, I think I would veer more towards the droids bit, not because of George, who is a legend, despite the fact we just sledged him for an hour. but more because of the Gregor stuff. Just literally in the whole bad batch of episodes. See what I did there? I found the Gregor stuff the most interesting, and that emotionally resonated with me. I thought the animation on his helmet, where you saw all the kills and everything, you saw that he had lost his memory. He'd been taken advantage of, but he kind of found his way back, and he made what looked like the ultimate sacrifice to help, his colleagues or whatever escape. I thought that was really, really good. But I am grasping at straws there. I thought these were a real slog. And again, it challenged my whole psyche, my whole memory, my false memory that all of season 5 is fucking brilliant.
Yeah, well, it's definitely not. Like, obviously, the start of it we said was interesting. Got the first episode, which is Revival, which is with Maul being amazing, and then you've got the Lux Monteri one-off episode that's quite cool, and then you've got the episodes with the Lux Monteri episodes are the Saul Guerrero ones, which are pretty good. They're not amazing, but they're all right. And these two are very weak. But when we get into the next two, that's when the stuff you remember is coming in. But Maff, I just want, before you say the thing, I finally found the information. So Clone Wars seasons 1 to 5 were Cartoon Network, so they're 22 episodes. So 1 to 4. Then season 5, this one, which is 20 episodes, was aired in like independent stations, part of like a Fox channel, the CW, other stuff. So it's kind of like splintered a little bit. Then season 6, which was cancelled partway through production, that was purchased by Netflix. And then Netflix for a little while had, in the US, had the Clone Wars series up to season 6 on there, and then Disney Plus got announced, blah, 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 all that jazz, and then it went on there. But Maff, what did you think of these two arcs? What was your favourite and final thoughts?
The first arc had potential as it started, and that with the whole seeing how the youngest were going to train, but it just lost its way. And again, unfortunately, you've got Hondo in there who just don't know what to do. The droids, they're not very good, but it's I think like Mountain Andor. You only have him for a bit, but what happens with him really means something to you.
Do you mean Nemec?
Oh, Nemec, sorry. Yeah.
You said mouse like in the Matrix, which is actually
in Matrix.
Yeah, that's a funny connection there, actually. Yeah.
But again, Droids is not brilliant, but the Gregor bit really hits. And that, the point when his memory starts to come back and he starts remembering things and he gets his armor and he suits up and it's like muscle memory, everything just kind of comes back to him. And that bit of, this is what I do. And that, and just that little bit of, I wonder if that was George's wife who wrote that. It just them little things kind of makes you forgive the rest of it. And that. So if I were to pick between, can't believe I'm saying, I'd probably watch the Droids again.
The Gregor one is a convincing argument.
Yeah, again, you've got a clone trooper there, so they're, to be fair, playing the new Star Wars game at the moment, not having force powers there is actually quite interesting.
Yeah.
The best parts about the Clone Wars is the clone troopers not having force powers, how they deal with stuff. That's actually really interesting. That's really fun to have. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, I would pick that side. I can't believe I'm saying that.
Interesting. I'd choose the Gathering arc. It was a lot worse than I remember. I remember really enjoying the arc, but mainly it's just the first episode I love. And I quite like the start of the second episode. The lightsaber construction, seeing that on screen for the first time, I love anything to do with that. And I'll show you guys my lightsaber in a minute, which is not an innuendo. That's not genuine Chit-Chat after dark. The one I bought.
I was talking about Jimmy Savile.
the one that I built at Galaxy's
We're too old.
Yeah, let's not go down that road. But I think that's more or less it. So the next episode we're going to be doing, which I'll talk to you guys off air when we'll record that, but it's going to be only 3 episodes. So Maff, you need to be careful here, okay? So this is going to be episodes 14, 15, and 16, and it's just a 3-part arc, and then we'll pause there, do a whole episode on those, and then it'll be the final 4 of season 5 will be an episode further on from that. But yeah, the next 3 are very good. I'm very excited to get into those. I can't say anything else about them. But what are you guys, to tell the audience, what are you guys doing at the moment? So we'll do plugs. So, Maff, have you guested on anyone's shows? Anything that you can talk about aside from Clone Wars conversations? I know that, I think Back to the Filmography is probably the last thing you did, wasn't it? Or have you got more stuff for Spider-Dan?
I think I'm meant to be doing something with Scott, 20th Century Geek. But I meant to do it last Friday, I think, and I forgot to message him. And so I've messaged him now. I'm just waiting to see how, but I don't know how quick he gets his stuff out there. He got me to read a book, and that, which is unusual. But then it's actually inspired me to go back and read some of the old books that I used to have, and that. So, but yeah, I think something like that will be coming out. But other than that, it's just been Clone Wars. So it's been nice to actually have a couple of, like a month or so off. And I mean, I don't do it as much as what you guys do, but it's been nice just to have the school holidays and not have to worry about stuff. So
yeah, amazing. And then Dave, obviously VHS Strikes Out is going to be weeks and weeks and weeks ahead by this point. But why don't you tell people just what's going on at the moment with it and anything else that you're releasing?
So it'll be completely out of date, but the episode that's coming out this week is The Fugitive, and there is a twist, which I won't mention in the episode, but if you haven't listened to it yet. What else am I doing? So at some point we'll record the mandatory music and CD as well. The next thing we've got coming up is Michael Jackson's Bad album, which has got an unbelievable amount of singles. I think in terms of singles to album, that's probably the highest that we've got. So myself, Tony, and Max will be discussing that at some point, and depending on this one, when this one comes out, I'm sure that will come out soon as well. I think we'll record some point in September, but we're all struggling a little bit just to get the time. Chris and we are just finishing off Celebs Go Dating as a season, and then we're going to be into maths, not math, as Chris keeps calling maths. Married at First Sight. I may be looking for some recruits because Chris is fucking off to Vegas as he normally does when we start something like this with a weekly show, and he buggers off, and I'm looking for a new recruit. So Mike, I may be looking to recruit you and Megan again. She
did watch maths last year, so unfortunately.
Well, it should be starting mid-September, I believe. ITV are a bit... Is it ITV or Channel 4? Whatever the fuck it is. They're a bit shit, really. They're just like, oh, yeah, it's coming mid-September. Like, motherfuckers, it's like the 9th of September now.
Yeah, like, which
fucking
day?
Just tell us when it's coming out, do a podcast.
We'll figure it out because we'll see how far through you'll want to do that. But yeah, I'm sure we'll be able to figure something out. Megan will watch them in any case. So
it's a bit easier than Love Island. Love Island is like 6 fucking days a week. Maths is 4. So it's a little bit easier.
Yeah, and maths, I think maths is better as well, I'd say. And what better is, it's more interesting to me because it actually seems to be people trying to improve themselves to a degree.
I think you've still got a heavy dose of influences, but you've got, I think on Love Island, you've obviously got people who are in their late teens, early 20s, who haven't actually fucking lived life yet, and so listening to these mundane conversations, like Maff was describing in the back of the car, like just arguing about nothing. With maths, you tend to get people across the spectrum. So people who are maybe a bit older as well, and, how they interact and then how the group interacts as well. It is a level above maths, I think. Married at First Sight, just in case anyone wasn't already aware of that. Well, that's awesome. With me, there's a few bits and pieces I've been doing. I did record an episode of Banned Books, which
So that episode will be out because Banned Books Week is in September, and this episode probably isn't going to release until, if not late September, probably early October. Even if that, because we've got another one in the bank. So I'll have guest spot details in the description. There's a lot of Vegas stuff, a lot of America stuff Megan and I are doing.
Sorry, I forgot another plug. Because Jack, across back to the filmography, he's finished off the Jason Statham episodes and until he releases something else. So he's starting off with Matthew McConaughey. And with Jason Statham, I guested on his podcast to review a film that was absolutely fucking shit and no one had seen. So I'm going to repeat that exercise for my next appearance. So I'm recording with Jack tomorrow.
Oh, amazing.
I'm not going to spoil what it is. It's not great.
Okay. Well, that's cool because I'm going to be recording a film, one of his earlier ones, and that I've never heard of that no one volunteered for either. So we'll see about that.
Yeah, I think I've got like the third or fourth one on there as well. So I'll be
another reason to subscribe to Back to Filmography. It's one of my favourite podcasts, and he's done all the Jason Statham stuff. Good memory there, Dave. And good shout out to a fellow creator. He's also been on the weekly Star Wars discussion shows. Obviously, he heralded the Andor discussions, which is the first time we got Maff in. So yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of guest spots before I went away, but at the moment, a lot of the output on Genuine Chit-Chat is Megan and I recorded 5 episodes about our trip. One of them's an hour and 10 minutes long, uncut. I think we do pause in the middle there for something, but it's a lot.
That's dedication, that is.
I know, on holiday as well. I think it's when we were in Yosemite, just sat chilling in nature.
Oh, that's one that you've released.
So I released one.
I listened to that this morning.
Yeah, I released that one, and then I've got another 4. I think the last 2 I'm going to combine because they're quite short. But yeah, so Meg and I talk about our whole trip, so if people want to find out about that, and there's the stuff I upload on YouTube, you get a slideshow of some of the pictures, and there's also things on Instagram that you can look at as well. So lots of stuff from me. So the last thing is, obviously I've said what we're doing next. The next episode is just going to be 3, all that jazz. I thought I'd show you guys on air the lightsaber I made at Galaxy's Edge. You may have already seen the pictures, but I thought I'll show you, and then people can also see it. So at Galaxy's Edge, pay extra money, so it costs quite a lot. I chose essentially the dark side kit. So you get to choose between 4 kits. One's Peace and Justice, one is like a nature-y one, and there's 2 others, and I chose one of the others. And you get that, and then you get to choose, they give you this box of pieces to make your lightsaber with, and it's 2 different pieces per part of it. So this is the lightsaber. So yes, very dark sidey, and I chose a red crystal as well.
It works really well in podcast form.
Yeah, I know. But people watching on YouTube, people watching on YouTube is mainly what I'm saying this for. But like each part of it here,
lightsaber's not a euphemism as well. It's really a lightsaber.
I've not got my cock out to clarify. But
yes, actually.
And then podcast form, so you can hear it, and it does actually make the noises when you move it as well.
Oh, that is very cool.
Yeah. So very much, I love this. And it's very weighty. It's very weighty as well. Like it's made of metal and it's quite heavy. So it feels like you're really holding something that is, it is a lightsaber. So I love that.
Just won't stop with the euphemisms, or maybe that's my brain. Sorry.
I can't help it. And then I'll show you Megan's. Megan's lightsaber's not as big as mine. There you go. How's that for euphemism? So this one, she chose like more of a scavenger style one. That is like a bantha horn at the bottom. So here, the pommel. And yeah, it's like more, but it's this bit here is like it's proper.
Megan's is more knobbly, just to
I mean, it does look a little
Tuscan Raven.
No, you know what? I'm not going to say it.
And then she chose a yellow blade. How about that? You guys being children.
Did you not get a double-ended one?
There it is. You can buy it, but
it's like a little massager at the end of it.
The pommel.
Is what?
Really. A nice twisted, ribbed.
Yeah.
A nice ribbed.
It is ribbed. Yeah.
Yeah.
For your pleasure.
That's why she got it. But yes. So that was fun. There's a fun little thing. So anyone listening has no concept of that, but check out on Instagram or watch the video version on YouTube and you'll get that. And while you're at YouTube, subscribe because you can find me on social media and everywhere at Genuine Chit-Chat. All the conversations of Clone Wars conversations, Rebels Reviewed, weekly discussion shows, all of those, they're across Comics in Motion and some on Genuine Chit-Chat, but all of them are on Genuine Chit-Chat's YouTube channel. So just go over there, and you'll find the video versions of this conversation and loads of other great things that we have all done together. But I'm very excited for the next few episodes. It's a delight chatting with you guys again, and we'll organise the next one very soon. So, find these guys on social media. There'll be the description. In the description, their names will be there. I think Threads is the happening place to be at the moment. But we appreciate you all listening, and I have to always say it, may the Force be with you.
And be with you.